Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 8 of Star Wars Rebels called Path of the Jedi. Sorry this review is going up a little bit late, but with the new year and some stuff happening career-wise for me, I kind of forgot that the show was coming back. Fortunately for me, the career stuff was positive. But anyway, this is, I have to say, probably my favorite episode of the show so far because I'm one of those people that I really love the mythology and the lore of related to the Jedi. That's some of my favorite stuff from the Star Wars expanded universe. Like things like Jedi, like some of the old EU books that they put out, like Jedi versus Sith, and even a book called, fittingly enough, The Jedi Path, which really delved into a lot of stuff involving the Force and the history of the Jedi and the names of the various lightsaber forms and all the little details about, Jedi Guardians, Jedi Sentinels, Jedi Consulars, all this stuff that things like that I just love. I just love the mythology of the Force and the Jedi. It's great and stuff, and I never ever get tired of it. And this is a pretty big plunge into that side of the Star Wars universe. In fact, I don't think we've really gotten anything quite this in depth involving the Jedi since the Mortis episodes of Clone Wars. And it's fitting that there be a callback to those episodes in this episode here. For example, when Obi-Wan went to Mortis and he heard the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan says, like, how is this possible? And Qui-Gon says, I'm here because you are here, which is exactly the same thing that Yoda says to Kanan when he asks basically the same question. Now, of course, we all know that currently in the Star Wars universe, at this time, Yoda would have been stuck in that crappy hut on Dagobah. But, Yoda was Grand Master of the Jedi Order, just ridiculously powerful in the Force. So the idea that a Jedi going to a place strongly connected to the Force and, sort of connecting with it could reach out to Yoda all the way on Dagobah, that is totally believable. Now, the idea that Kanan doesn't press Yoda for a little bit more details, like, how are you? I'm so glad you're still alive. Where are you? Then he doesn't say, like, hey, Master Yoda, we should work together. But he doesn't. And, well, just for storytelling purposes, it really wouldn't be proper for Kanan to just palm Ezra off on Yoda and just sort of like have Ezra be the one running around with Yoda in a backpack through the swamps of Dagobah. And, I like the fact that they don't even really try and go there. It's just a lot of what we see in this episode is Kanan and Ezra all sort of instinctively understand certain aspects of this situation. Like, Kanan kind of accepts that, it's my job to train Ezra. He doesn't try even for a second to sort of push this off on Yoda. And, of course, part of Kanan's whole situation here is Yoda saying to him, like, are you up for this? And Kanan is basically sort of like, I'm going to do my best. And that's a really kind of a moment for him, because whether or not he has what it takes to train Ezra has been something that's really been eating at him. And remember, when Order 66 went down, Kanan was only about 13 or 14 years old. He was still a Padawan himself. In fact, he hadn't been a Padawan for all that long, probably just a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years. And being a Padawan can last anywhere from, for most of Padawans, I think it's sort of like your early 20s or something when you officially get dubbed a Jedi Knight. I mean, there have been exceptions to that over the years. Ahsoka Tano was still a teenager when she was offered Jedi Knighthood. Ben Skywalker became a Jedi Knight at 16, but he wasn't a member of the formal traditional Jedi Order. I think Zane Carrick was 19 years old when he was offered knighthood, but he also turned that down for various reasons. And if you don't know who Zane Carrick is, he's from the Knights of the Old Republic comic books. Basically, outside of the movies and Clone Wars, Knights of the Old Republic comics are my absolute favorite Star Wars stories ever. And Zane is my favorite Star Wars character ever. He is great. because he basically starts off as like the worst Padawan in Jedi history, and then he gets framed for murder, and he just gets crazier from there. But anyway, getting back to this episode. So, accepting that, he had his doubts and fears about training Ezra, but coming to accept that, you know what, maybe I'm not a proper Jedi master, but I'm going to do the best I can to train Ezra in the ways of the Jedi, to pass on what I know to him, and even though it's not really spoken, become a better Jedi himself. That's kind of what's going on with Kanan this episode. Now, Ezra's journey here is a little bit more the traditional thing. I mean, it's very much the Dagobah cave, for what happened to Luke. Luke went in there and he sort of saw basically what were his fears. He saw that when he attacked Darth Vader and he saw the mask break apart and saw his own face with him, he saw the potential for the dark side within himself to potentially drive him down the same path as his father. And if you're familiar with the story Dark Empire, well, but we're not going to get into that. And Ezra's going on a similar situation here. When Yoda first starts pressing him about, like, hey, well, why do you want to be a Jedi? He's like, well, I want to pay back the Empire for what they did to my family. I want to get revenge. I want to become powerful. And, of course, these are absolutely the wrong reasons for anybody to go out and become a Jedi. Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. And also, of course, obviously, revenge, power, the desire for power. These are all rooted in fear. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to suffering, yada yada, the dark side. And when Ezra is really sort of flipping out and yelling there, you can sort of see things around him turning red. And it is very evocative of what we saw last episode, where he did come up with that connection to the dark side of the Force. And Kanan even explicitly tells him, like, look, this is one of the reasons why I've realized I've needed to get serious with you about your training. Because Ezra's a good kid, but he's a kid with a lot of fear and a lot of anger in him. And that is really easily, it could really easily, unless Kanan is very careful with him, lead Ezra down the path to the dark side. I mean, you could kind of just see that the Inquisitor might actually be more interested in taking Ezra as his own apprentice, perhaps, turning him into a reflection of what his worst self, tempt him to fall to the dark side and all that. Now, granted, in Ezra's vision of the Inquisitor, the Inquisitor just wants to kill him and Kanan and the rest of the people on the Ghost. But again, the idea that sometime later we might not actually see the Inquisitor try and lure Ezra to his side, I would not be the least bit surprised if we didn't see that happen. But anyway, getting back to what we do actually see in this episode, we also get to see Ezra's worst fears about his crewmates on the Ghost. He's afraid that Zeb, who, apart from Kanan, is the person he feels the strongest bond with, just sees him as an annoyance. He's afraid that Sabine sees him as nothing but a child, and he's afraid that Hera doesn't care about him as a person and is only interested in his skills, in what he can do for her. Now, of course, this isn't how it is. The crew of the Ghost might butt heads with each other and drive each other crazy, but they're good people who care about each other genuinely. And Ezra knows this. He sees through this illusion really quickly. And it takes him a little longer, but he also sees through the illusion of the Inquisitor. And it is when that he sees through these illusions that he realizes that his real desire to become a Jedi is rooted in wanting to do good, to protect the people that he cares about. And that's the right answer. That's why you become a Jedi. To do good. To help other people. And now some people might say, well, it was caring about Padme that led Anakin to the dark side. Well, no. That's not what it was at all. If that's what you think, you completely missed what it was that was going on with Anakin and Padme. Anakin fell to the dark side because of fear. He fell to the dark side because of his fear of losing Padme. And that is ultimately what turned her against him, that caused him to her. He himself hurt her. It caused him to turn against everyone. His fellow Jedi, Obi-Wan, who was basically his father/brother figure. It caused him to go out and murder children personally. And that's why Yoda makes such a big deal about fear being the path to the dark side. Now, we all lose things in our lives. We lose people, we lose relationships, we lose possessions that are valuable to us. And it's natural to be upset when this happens. But we have to remember, and this is rooted in the core of what the Jedi believe, that when you lose something, you have to let it go. You have to accept that this has happened to you. When someone you love dies, as much as you might want otherwise, you have to accept that they're gone. When a relationship ends, you have to accept that that relationship has run its course. When you lose something, a possession that is valuable to you, you have to remind yourself that it's just an object and that it's gone. Letting go of things is something that has been talked about in many religions as a vital thing that we have to learn to just accept. Loss is a part of life. We cannot escape it. It will happen to you no matter what. Just like suffering will. Just like death will. But if you accept that these things happen, then you can let go. And it is only in not letting go that these things have power over you. That these things can instill fear in you and instill anger and hatred in you when things don't go your way in regards to them. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight to protect the people and things that you care about. But you have to accept that people and things are temporary. This too shall pass. Ashes to ashes. Dust to dust. Valar Morghulis. It is his inability, it is his fear of losing Padme that caused Anakin to lose Padme. That's what it was at the end of the day. So yeah, ultimately Ezra faces his fears. Kanan faces his fears. And they both come out stronger for it. They both come out better Jedi for it. And it's at this moment that leads us to Ezra's really moment of triumph, where he builds his own lightsaber. He incorporates a blaster into it. And it even says, it's very Ezra. But also keep in mind that actually building your own lightsaber is traditionally one of the steps that a Padawan must take in order to become a Jedi Knight. So Ezra's knocked a couple of things off the list. So before I wrap this up, there's one thing I do want to note that I found a little weird. You notice how basically there were essentially the corpses of two dead Jedi Masters, and Kanan even says, like, oh yeah, those are Jedi whose Padawans didn't return. I find it a little odd that the Jedi would design things so that if the Padawan fails, the Master is condemned to be trapped inside this building to, well, I imagine most people would think starve to death, but given the way that physiology works, at least in humans, they would actually probably die of thirst first. So the idea that the Jedi were like, yeah, so here, Master Jedi, if your Padawan screws up, you get to sit here in this entombed alive in this temple to die a slow and unpleasant death. That does not seem like the Jedi way at all. It would actually not surprise me if those were actually just sort of really elaborate props meant to sort of screw with the Padawan's brains. You know what? I'm just going to pretend that's true, because otherwise it's kind of BS. But, a little mark like that I'm not going to hold against this episode. All in all, as I said, this is my favorite episode of the show so far. I really loved just the way the whole Jedi stuff was presented. It really, really resonated. And I think if you're really paying attention to what's going on, the message of what it means to be a Jedi comes through really clearly. So with that said, guys, I'm going to wrap it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.